Many of you know this symbol to be called the caduceus, which is a symbol used in the medical industry. Well, the Latin word for this symbol is caduce, which means fall. And this is where it all begins.
Caduceus.
Caduceu.
Now, according to Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God hath made. The English word subtle in Latin means subtilis, and subtilis means precise. And dictionary.com describes this as characterized by mental acuteness or penetration. Well, the word acute in Latin means acutus, and acutus means dangerous. Now we're getting somewhere. And when you go back and read this verse now, it reads, "Now the serpent was more dangerous than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made." What exactly is the serpent? What does it signify? And why is it used in the medical industry? And what makes it so dangerous? In later antiquity, the caduceus provided the basis for the astrological symbol representing the planet Mercury. Thus, through its use in astrology, alchemy, and astronomy, it has come to denote the planet and elemental metal of the same name. It is said the wand would wake the sleeping and send the awake to sleep. If applied to the dying, their death was gentle. If applied to the dead, they returned to life. But perhaps the most important of this is where it says two realms in which balanced exchange and reciprocity are recognized as ideals. This association is ancient. But what does Adam, Eve, the serpent, the staff, Mercury, and Hermes have to do with each other? And what is this balanced exchange? The Roman god Mercury is the same as the Greek god Hermes, which was the god of translators and interpreters. He was the most clever of the Olympian gods and served as messenger for all the other gods. Mercury is also the fastest of all the planets and is the closest to the sun. Mercury represents the principles of communication, mentality, thinking patterns, rationality, reasoning, adaptability, and variability. The Greek name for Mercury was Hermes Trismegistus and was thought to be a representation of the Egyptian god Thoth. The wisdom attributed to this figure in antiquity combined a knowledge of both the material and the spiritual world. And this was extremely important to those who were seeking the knowledge of the interrelationship between the material and the divine, such as myself. It's beginning to make sense that maybe Adam represented the material body and Eve represented the divine spirit, and the serpent was the connection between the two, perhaps representing pleasure. Pleasure in Latin means voluptas, and voluptas translates into English as sensual delight. Sensual leads to sensation, sensation leads to feeling, and feeling leads to affection, and affection leads to emotion, or disposition of mind. This disposition, which seemed to put the body over the spirit, is what made the energies imbalanced, also known as discord. Now, since all of this is happening on the inside and outside of the body, it leads me to think that just maybe there's a lot of symbolism here for what Mercury, Hermes, and all of the planets really are inside of the body. So what would be the quickest messenger in the body? Hermes, hormones. And with Mercury being the planet of communication, it makes sense that our hormones would be the quickest communicator with our cells. And if you look carefully, the origin of hormone is horme, which means impulse, assault. What exactly is this an assault on? Is it our cells? I find it interesting that the root word of Hermes, which is hermit, means cellular in Latin. Cell means carcer, and carcer means prison, cell, jail, or dungeon. Given how quickly the hormones are transported by the blood into the cells and the tissues and has a certain effect upon the cell, it makes perfect sense that the endocrine system and all of its 12 organs communicate to the cells of the body by releasing hormones directly into the circulatory system. And seated at the head of the table is none other than the hypothalamus, the control center for all of the endocrine systems. Now that we understand that Hermes is to hormones and Mercury is to the planets, let's see what else this messenger had to say. As above, so below is a modern paraphrase of an ancient saying that came from the ancient Hermetic text called the Emerald Tablets that was written by, you guessed it, Hermes Trismegistus. And in Latin it means, what is above is like what is below, and what is below is like what is above. So above, there are 7 ancient planets, and below, there are 7 major organs. Above, there are 12 zodiac signs, and below, there are 12 endocrine glands. And just like we stated before that the hypothalamus rules all of the glands, we can now see that the Egyptians were well aware of this macrocosm-microcosm connection. And now we can see why they tracked the sun's whereabouts and its patterns in the sky and how it had a major effect upon the 7 planets as well as the 12 zodiacs, just like the hypothalamus has an effect on the 7 organs, and the 12 glands. Now, we are all well aware that the sun does not rule the sky all by itself. At night, the moon rules the sky. And just like this divine heavenly companionship creates the perfect balance, perhaps, just perhaps, on earth, this is the same as Adam and Eve, or what the ancients referred to as Ra and Isis, or what we like to call in modern times as divine feminine and divine masculine energies. Now that we can see how the masculine sun represents the hypothalamus in the body, what exactly would the moon represent? Research has shown that the divine feminine is represented by the pineal gland, aka the moon. So you see, the technical name for the pineal gland is epiphysis, and in Latin it means to bring forth, to make grow. And if you remove the first 3 letters from the word, it reads Physis, which sounds like the Egyptian goddess Isis. And lo and behold, when you compare the representation of the goddess Isis next to the pineal gland, they are a perfect match. And although Egyptian teachings predate Christianity by well over 2,000 years, this was replaced with this. Deliberately removing the divine feminine from any creation story and therefore causing an imbalance, not in just nature, but also within us deeply. So what is the major function of the epiphysis, aka pineal? The medical dictionary reads that the pineal, in certain amphibians and reptiles, is thought to function as a light receptor. In most mammals, though, including humans, it appears to be the major or unique site of melatonin biosynthesis. Now, before we get into what melatonin is, it's important that you understand the word epiphany comes from epiphysis, and it means an appearance or manifestation, especially of a deity, or a sudden intuitive perception of or insight into the reality or essential meaning of something. We'll get to the definition of number 1 later. Melatonin is secreted from the pineal gland, and it is linked to both sleep, wakefulness, and light-dark cycles. And when your eyes perceive that light is fading, the secretion of melatonin is actually increased by the pineal gland through neural pathways involving the hypothalamus. So you see, once again, Ra and Isis, being the sun and the moon, work together to control light and day in the sky, just like the hypothalamus and the pineal gland work together to control day and light cycles in the body.